Good afternoon. It's day 257 of Ukrainian resistance. Ukrainian Media Center Organic Reform continues its operation. My name is Vasil Samakhvalov, and our next speaker is spokesman of the Ukrainian Air Force Command, Mr. Yurii Ihnat. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Mr. Yurii. Today in the morning in the southern direction we shut down another Su-25, and in the southern areas there were more frequent cases of us landing the enemy aviation. What can we say about the reinforcement of our anti-aircraft complexes in the southern part of Ukraine? I wouldn't say this week it's more frequent, because last and the week before we downed more Sukhos and more helicopters, and we have quite intense offensive to be observed by our forces. So the enemy uses more aviation because the land forces, they expire, they get exhausted, and they're being destroyed by our defense forces. So the enemy gets his forces reinforced by attack aviation and helicopters. More frequently it's Camel 52, seen mostly by our anti-aircraft systems, which we downed. So we observe good work completed by the equipment provided by our partners. However, we still need more of them for efficient work, but it's reinforcement by the German IRIS-T. The Minister of Defense stated recently about the supply of Aspid to Ukraine from Spain, and NASAMS system that is already in Ukraine, which will be commissioned shortly for the efficient protection of our skies, including in the southern areas. President promised some good news about the anti-aircraft systems. Is it about time that we hear this news already? Well, you know, if President promised it, it should be him exactly who should say about that. We understand that this is a sensitive subject with regard to anti-aircraft systems, so the enemy is looking for any information of any kind that can be used for the destruction of those anti-aircraft systems supplied by the partners. So all the information that was promulgated, we expect SICOC systems, we expect NASAMS and others that will substantially reinforce the system of anti-aircraft defense which existed since Soviet times, and it would operate as the single united system in the single united information field. We were asked a lot of times in the Air Force if or in what way would they work in the integrated system with the Soviet systems. So it's obvious if it works already. We're talking currently about the high-tech German complex IRIS-T. It means that everything is already integrated and worked through, and we just need to obtain the necessary number, and this number is huge in situation with Ukraine. Talking about the airstrikes and air attacks, we need more of them. Shaheeds started to be launched just one by one, and the intelligence of Ukraine started that Russia has less than 20 Iskander missiles. It's below the reserves that they can use. Can we say that the attack resource of Russia is being exhausted? Well, it goes without saying, because we observed by dynamics of the strikes of the offensive operations. We haven't seen Iskanders used for a long time, and it's good because those are ballistic missiles, and Iskanders, they need them to have some deterrent forces. So if they start exhausting their reserves, many intelligence of many countries mentioned that they start exhausting their reserves. We know that Iskanders can carry tactical nuclear charge, so Russia cannot allow themselves using those missiles on our energy infrastructure, which is #1 target for them. For the time being, this is why they buy cheap UAVs. They were talking about 2,400 UAVs from Iran, and now we see less application of them, and obviously the transportation is not so quick to those points where they launched them. I don't know, maybe they assembled them already from parts in Russia that they don't even have time to paint them, because it's just an assumption, but it may take time too. And respectively, the capabilities of the countries such as Iran are not borderless. Maybe they had an agreement for several thousand within certain period, like shipment in a number of batches. And as to ballistic missiles, we have information that they achieved some agreement as to delivery to Russia, which is not quite substantial. We understand that there is an air communication between between Tehran and Moscow on a regular level. We see Iranian ports not so far from Makhachkala and Astrakhan, where they can be delivered with no problem by sea. I mean, these missiles. We have questions, please. Good afternoon. Ukrinform, Arlena Sipko. Mr. Yurii, can you please tell us if there is any information on the capabilities of Iran in terms of number of the missiles it can deliver? And with the kind of information of this concealed mobilization in Belarus, some constant movement, do we observe any increase in Russian aviation in the military airfields in Belarus? Thank you. As to the number of missiles, is question mostly to our Central Intelligence Department. This information is being shared sometimes by our partners, and we probably don't have to promulgate this information right now. We have it in certain cabinets. Yes, there is a fact that these missiles are coming. Those are the 300 to 700 kilometers distance missiles. They don't pose anything new for Ukraine. Iskanders were used from the very first day of the war, but it's still a new threat, just as Shahed, just as ballistic missiles. They should be destroyed. They should be destroyed maybe at their launch sites, because we don't have efficient means to counter the ballistic missiles. So they should be destroyed at the launch stage. So I think that the higher military command and our partners already worked on this issue, looking for efficient ways to counter these new threats. As to the aircraft, nothing changes radically. Aviation was concentrated just as previously in 40 airfields in Crimea, Belarus, and Russia. Yes, there are 3 new MiG-31K, which can carry such missiles as Kinzhal, and the air raid alerts will obviously be announced as the aviation that can carry such weapon. It takes off just like Tupolev 22, which can carry missiles, X-22, Tupolev 95, Tupolev 160. If they get on the battle course, we can hear the air raid alert, because there's the threat of missile strike. And as to the number, their aviation is in the number of 750, including the helicopters, which are located in the Air Force, which are located on a different distance from our borders, but the aviation is more or less at the same level. They take test flights. We observe 10 to 20 units of air material patrolling in the airspace of occupied areas in Crimea and Belarus.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Lorenzo Cremonesi, reporter for Corriere della Sera from Italia here in Kiev. Sir, thank you for your very professional attitude. First of all, we note kind of a contradiction. From one side, we heard now just a press conference for the person in charge of electrical and energy here in the country was talking about continuous, precise attacks by the Russian on the electrical net in the country. And it's not so much on the source of power, but on the distribution. In order to do this, you need to be very accurate because these are very little targets. It's difficult to attack. And apparently they are quite successful. So apparently they are quite successful in targeting specific objectives. On the other side, you're telling us that apparently the Russians are finishing good weapons. They have this new kind of missiles. They are less accurate. So what is the point here? Are the Russians continuously attacking specific targets and they're good to do that, or you observe they are less capable to be so precise? The first question. And the second question, sir.
Step by step.
Okay.
Okay. Переклад. А чи чули ви переклад?
Ні, не чув.
Тоді, в принципі, головне питання, наскільки я зрозумів, що зараз росіяни атакують нашу енергетичну структуру, але з огляду на те, що ми
As of today, their main target is the energy infrastructure. They use all the range of their available weapons. So except for Shaheds, they use another UAVs to target the Lancet loitering drones manufactured in Russia with imported parts, and they eventually need to achieve their results. They need to achieve their targets to target the energy infrastructure, in not talking about the only air energy transportation facilities, but they also try to hit the hydraulic power plants. So the only goal is that they cannot be the Ukrainian army. They have problems in certain areas in the front lines. So during fall and winter, they want to have the energy infrastructure objects targeted, because many factors depend on that, including the life of people, and this terrorism will continue because it's understood that the rockets which they are about to receive from Iran, if it will be done, they will be used on the energy infrastructure facilities. And they will continue to strike with the cruise missiles, because as of today we see in the equator of the Black Sea, they have ships which carry caliber missiles. They're concentrated in the harbors from where they were performing the strikes, and it can be explained by the number of factors, because first of all, calibers are not so easy to manufacture. It's not so quick. It takes certain time to accumulate the caliber missiles to perform these kind of massive strikes, because single strikes by the cruise missiles, like both from the ships and strategic aviation, they don't have the result that occupants would want to see. Even now, you can see that the cruise missiles judging by the last attack, that 45 out of 55 launched were shot down by our anti-aircraft defense. And ballistic missiles are quite different. They fly in technically from stratosphere, from the space. They are launched from the ground, and there is no efficient protection in Ukraine against the missiles like that. So as of today, we are expecting to get these types of defense from our partners, which would allow us to reach the enemy launch sites, which could protect us from ballistic missiles, which against this terrorism that Russia started against our people.
Sorry, sir. So again, are the Russians still able to target specific objective or less? And that was my second question before, is can you give us any kind of assessment of their total capacity? How many missiles do they have? How many drones do they have? What is the potential capacity of the Russians at the moment? Thank you.
Unconditionally, the enemy doesn't publish and doesn't say about the number of missiles they still have. Our intelligence has this information. The information is being added and promulgated in certain agencies that they have 20 Iskander missiles, as we mentioned today, but such rockets as X-101 or Caliber missiles, they can manufacture them. However, it takes certain time. It takes time. They cannot make it, they cannot manufacture it in 2 days, and it takes weeks to test them and to install them on the ships or bring them to the launch sites. And in this way, they accumulate the missile potential. I don't quite understand your question. If they can target certain facilities, they will obviously look for these energy infrastructure facilities and other important government facilities that they are about to target. If you want to specify your question, I can answer it.
Just briefly, are they still able to target specific targets good as before? Because you were telling us they have less accurate weapons. That's the question. Are they still able to aim a specific target as before?
Well, unconditionally, they use cruise missiles, say those Iskander missiles, and loitering drones, both manufactured in Russia and Iran. The cruise missiles that they use, both Caliber and X-101, even the Iranian drone is the high precision weapon and with a damage radius of 10 meters. Yes, they can damage targets in Ukraine with a high precision. As to the Iranian rockets, which can potentially be transferred to Russia, we don't have information of how precise this weapon is. Iran manufactured it back in 2000s, so with a distance of 300 to 700 kilometers. Those are the developments of a Soviet era, a little bit modernized in a way that they are now, but we don't have information as to their efficiency and precision in numbers for the time being. Hopefully it's not such a big threat, but it's still a threat and we have to counter it.
With National Public Radio in the United States. In the past month, could you describe the biggest challenge? Is it simply you're trying to defend many more sites now because Russia is going after the electricity grid. So you have more sites to defend than before. Are there any challenges with integrating your different defense system, your air defense systems, that now you're getting new systems from the West, but they're different systems? Is it a challenge to integrate them? So just what are the biggest challenges over the past month?
As I mentioned, if we see that now IRIS and NASAMS are already available in Ukraine, there is a solution for their integration into Ukrainian anti-aircraft system. So they already work. They are already a part of the anti-aircraft system which operates in Ukraine already. We have different Soviet-era anti-aircraft complexes like Buk and C-300, and together with the equipment provided by the Western partners, if it couldn't be integrated in the system, we wouldn't have talked about their supply to Ukraine. And as to the number of the targets and sites, as you mentioned, Ukraine is one of the largest countries in Europe. And as to the target acquisition and the fire means, that's something that we are lacking now. So starting from 24th of February, we work under the conditions when the enemy first hit the Air Force capacities. So we keep losing material because it's the war of fire means that we don't have honestly enough to cover all the territory of Ukraine, every single square meter of our land. That's why our anti-aircraft defense takes certain steps. We keep maneuvering, providing some surprises for the enemy, catching them in different areas and on different directions. The enemy has quite a broad network of intelligence, land reconnaissance, many Russian agents working in Ukraine, discovering the spots where the anti-aircraft means are located and reported to the enemy. Thus, we have to counter that too, to counter the threats like that as well. The uniqueness of our anti-aircraft defense, because it's made out of everything. It's made of portable anti-aircraft devices, mobile fire teams with SAMs along all the territory of Ukraine where the threat is mostly expected. We have our attack aviation flying in different areas to intercept both cruise missiles and drones, and the rocket troops work in the forward edge of the battle area, and they cover the important infrastructure installations as well. However, the means to protect the skies are not still enough. This is why we're asking the whole world to help Ukraine with any means, preferably something up-to-date, something new and high-tech, because the war is transitioning to the phase of drone attacks, and we need fire means to damage these drones. They are SAMs and type of Gepard self-propelled SAMs and high-distance rockets with the electronic warfare means to perform the target acquisition and effectively do it. I apologize, but our speaker has to leave. We had Yurii Ihnat with us, spokesman of the Air Force Command. Our next briefing is in half an hour, and we will talk about the militarization of education.